Welcome to About Mansfield. It's your audio newspaper. I'm Steve Casillo, broadcasting from the Cellmark Studios. This is the August 20th, 2025, 285th edition. Today's format is changing just a bit. I am actually taking this week off to help manage the world's largest podcast convention, Podcast Movement, happening right now in Grapevine. So today is just the talk segment, and this is one that's near and dear to my heart. Coming up after a few words from our sponsors, you'll hear an hour-long conversation with old 97's singer-songwriter, Rhett Miller. Enjoy.
Hey there, it's Luke from Cool Hand Electric. Are you tired of dealing with plugs or lights that just won't cooperate? Well, don't fret. Give us a call. Worried about power outages or surges damaging your precious electronics? We've got you covered. Whether it's a whole house generator or surge protection, our solution-oriented Cool Hands are ready to tailor the perfect option that suits your needs and budget. At Cool Hand Electric, excellence is still cool.
Cool Hand, Cool Hand, Cool Hand, where excellence is still cool.
This summer, be the super parent of the season with the Hawaiian Falls Staycation Splash Pass. For just $49.99, get unlimited visits to your home park all summer long. Skip the hassle of travel. It's time for heart-racing slides, relaxing lazy rivers, wave pool adventures, and unforgettable memories right in your own backyard. All of the fun, none of the fuss. Make this the summer they'll never forget with the Staycation Splash Pass from Hawaiian Falls. Get yours now at hfalls.com. That's hfalls.com.
Looking for a night out that's anything but ordinary? Step into Vault Seafood and Steakhouse, Mansfield's premier upscale dining experience. Savor perfectly aged steaks, fresh seafood, and handcrafted cocktails, all served in a stunning atmosphere. Want more? Enjoy private dining rooms and a cigar lounge for that extra touch of luxury. Vault delivers exceptional flavor in a one-of-a-kind atmosphere. Located at Matlock and Country Club, Vault Seafood and Steakhouse. Unforgettable nights. Unmatched taste.
Hungry for bold flavor and a good time? Head on over to El Primo's to enjoy sizzling fajitas and their signature blue margarita. Enjoy weekend live entertainment and let the kids run wild with an outdoor play area and arcade. Planning a party? Multiple private rooms are available, including the all-new Parrot's Nest to make your event a success. Food, fun, and flavor for the whole family at El Primo's. Visit elprimos.net and bring your appetite. Located at Matlock and Country Club. El Primo's, where the locals go.
At Methodist Mansfield Medical Center, we've been caring for our home team for over 15 years. Today, you'll find award-winning physicians on the medical staff, advanced neurosurgery, a level 3 trauma center, critical care for newborns, and comprehensive orthopedic care. Methodist Mansfield, delivering the care our friends, neighbors, and home team depend on. That's community, and why so many people trust Methodist.
Imagine a city where innovation knows no bounds, where dreams take flight, and the future unfolds before your very eyes. Welcome to Mansfield, a beacon of growth and a testament to vision. In the heart of Mansfield, a remarkable transformation is underway. But it's not just about the physical landscape. It's about the spirit that drives us forward. A spirit of collaboration that bridges cultures, a spirit of entrepreneurship that fuels prosperity, and a spirit of community that binds us as one. Mansfield is more than just a place. It's a canvas where diversity paints the picture of progress. From art festivals that ignite creativity to tech hubs that redefine boundaries, this city celebrates every voice, every passion. Mansfield, where growth knows no limits and the vision is limitless. Brought to you by the unstoppable spirit of the Mansfield Economic Development Corporation.
Howdy, y'all. This is Rhett Miller from the old 97's, and you're listening to About Mansfield.
Welcome back to another segment of About Mansfield. I'm Steve Casillo as we make the transition from news to talk. And it was about 13 years ago. A friend of mine took me to go see a local Dallas band. We went to see this band at the Fort Worth Botanic Gardens, and I became an instant fan. A little late to the party because the band was already 20 years old. The Mansfield reference to this interview is As a result of the show at the Botanic Gardens, the band was booked and headlined the historic Mansfield Music and Arts Festival in October of 2013. Yeah, it took me 12 years to get this guy on the podcast. I was the president of that organization that produced the festival, and unbeknownst to us at that time, it would be our last festival. My guest today is the leader, singer-songwriter of an American rock band. The band released their 13th studio album, American Primitive, in 2024. He is a solo artist. He has released 8 albums as a solo artist. The band that I'm referring to is one of my favorites, the old 97's, Rhett Miller. Welcome to About Mansfield.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How's life in upstate New York?
It's great. I'm in the Hudson Valley. It's a beautiful day. I'm sitting in my office. I've got the window in front of me, blue skies. It's lovely. I never thought I would live in New York, but it's not what you think of when you think of New York. We got 3 acres. We're at the base of the mountains, 90 minutes north of Manhattan.
Any horses? Is it a ranch or?
I don't have any horses. Down the street, there's a big farm with a bunch of cows on it. My niece has a bunch of horses on her land about 5 minutes away. There's a lot of horses around, but I only have a miniature poodle, and that's enough. That's
a miniature poodle.
More than
Hey, do you remember that gig at the Botanic Gardens in Fort Worth?
Of course, yeah, lovely.
Amongst the mosquitoes and the cicadas?
One of which beautiful, the other annoying. But yeah, of course, I love it.
Yeah. It was, okay, that was the first time I'd seen the old 97's. I had never heard the music before.
Yeah.
And there was one line that actually resonated with me. It turns out it was the last song of the night. She's gonna kill me, and I don't mean softly.
Yeah.
And it made me laugh. And I had turned to my friend who was also on the board of this festival that I was talking about, and I said, "We got to have these guys in Mansfield." Of the hundreds of bands that we produced over 5 years, the old 97's were the only band that got a green room.
Well, I really appreciate it. And I remember it was a lot of fun. It seems like yesterday. It's crazy that was 13 years ago.
13 years ago. Hey, could we go back in time?
Yeah.
It was Barrier Reef that you revealed your name, Stuart Ransom Miller. At what age and how did you become Rhett Miller?
Well, my dad is Stuart Ransom Miller. I'm the second, which technically I'm supposed to be a junior because if it's only one generation removed, you're supposed to be junior. But my mom agreed to it, but she said it's got to be the second rather than junior, which breaks that rule. And she also said we can't call him any of the subsequent nicknames, Stu, Stewie. My dad is Randy because Ransom can become Randy. But she was a Gone with the Wind fan, so she agreed to the name, which is it's a rough name. It's hard in airports, and the number 2 on the end of it is a real problem. But she agreed to the name if I could be called Rhett. So from birth, I've been Rhett.
Does your driver's license say Stuart or does it say Rhett?
No, it says Stuart Ransom Miller 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Ransom, is it a family name? It's not the name you hear very often.
Yeah, it's obviously my dad had it, but my family, there was a lot of family names. Stewart is one on my dad's mom's side, and Connell and Ransom, and there's a lot of those. But yeah, my dad's dad actually owned the 1952 Dallas Texans that went on to get to fold during his first year of ownership, and then they became the Baltimore Colts eventually. But he was, he was Giles Miller and his brother was Connell Miller. And there's a lot of these names, and my brother got some of them and I got some of them, and they get 7 generations of Texans. Names are like playing cards in a deck. They just get shuffled around.
So if your grandfather had stuck around long enough, he could have been owner or co-owner of the Baltimore Colts.
He was only a few years before the TV deal that made it so no NFL team would ever go bankrupt again. But yeah, my dad my dad's dad went bankrupt trying to bring the NFL to Dallas, which is insane to think. And so I grew up just a regular kid, but I could have grown up like a Jerry Jones level kid.
And we're going to talk about Jerry Jones a little bit later, but let's stick with your childhood. You went to St. Mark's up there in Dallas, class of 89?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Famous people from St. Mark's, Steve Miller, Boss Skaggs, they were both classmates. Tommy Lee Jones, class of 65. But the one that was also on campus at the same time you were, did you know Owen Wilson at the time?
Of course, I knew both of the Wilson brothers. Owen was older and Luke was younger. They were hanging around.
Any stories about Owen or or Luke?
No, Owen was a bit of a troublemaker. He ended up getting kicked out. I think there was some issue like on a school trip, maybe drinking on a school trip or something. Luke was younger. He was a little quiet and played football. I think we were on a football team together at one point. I only played through 9th grade. They were cool. Steve Miller's the reason I didn't get kicked out, because he had gotten kicked out. And then whenever he would come back to play an event for the school, he would charge full price.
Of course.
So I was putting out a record while I was in high school, and my grades were not great. I probably should have been kicked out, but they came to me, the powers that be at the time, and said, we're going to let you slide on these grades if you'll just, promise to come back and do stuff with the school. And I have over the years. I've gone and done a lot of events and, assemblies for the kids. I actually love it.
While you were in high school, you were writing poetry.
Yeah.
And released your first album as a senior, and so called Mythologies. And you only released 1,000?
Yes, I recorded it before my senior year. I think I recorded it at the end of my junior year. And then that summer, I knocked all my teeth out in a 4-wheeler accident. And I had already done the photo shoot for the album. So one of the pictures from the photo shoot became my senior picture in the yearbook because I knocked all my teeth out. I mean, it was bad. I ripped my jaw open and it was a pretty bad accident. And so they used the photograph which just didn't look at all like any of the other senior pictures, which all looked very normal. I had like a wind machine blowing my long hair and like a military jacket on. It was ridiculous. But
back then you were a glasses wearing skinny looking kid. You didn't have the long hair that you have now, right?
No, I did. In fact, I made them change the rule during my junior year. You weren't allowed to have hair that touched your collar, and I fought it, and they changed the rule, and I think now it's back. But they were pretty cool. They let me get away with a lot because they were supporting the idea that you could be different and artsy. And I'm pretty grateful for it, honestly.
And being different and artsy, you had a connection with David Bowie.
Well, I was a big David Bowie fan. I think I felt like an outsider, and he seemed like he embodied that whole thing. And so, so the record I did make when I think I recorded it at 17 and released it at 18. But Bowie influenced me so much that on that album, I have a bit of a British accent because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. If you're a singer, this is how you sing, which is kind of funny considering I'm a 7th generation Texan, but it's fine. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. There was a long time when I felt, pretty embarrassed by it. Now I just feel like, what are you going to do? I was young.
But then you went on, you recorded a 4-song EP and which included 5 Years by David Bowie.
Oh yeah. Years later, the old 97's did an EP called Mimeograph. And one of our songs was, Bowie's 5 Years. I've sung a lot of David Bowie songs. In fact, in high school, I did a gig. The biggest gig I'd ever done at the time was at the, now defunct, what was the name of the Arcadia Theater on Greenville Avenue. I opened for Roseanne Cash, who's now a friend of ours, and we've co-written and sung on albums together, and she's a good friend of mine. And but I was opening for her, and I was a kid, and I did David Bowie's Young Americans on my 12-string guitar, and it's a long song. And during the course of the song, I broke first one string and then a verse later another string. I ended up breaking 4 strings during the course of one song. And I finally just quit my set early and apologized, but I couldn't go on with only 8 of my 12 strings still working and wildly out of tune. And she was really nice. I remember at the time she gave me a bit of a pep talk and just said, just remember, this kind of thing happens. Maybe next time bring a backup guitar. Yeah.
Your genre is alt country. And it says that the alt country movement during the mid to late 90s was something that you and the old 97's developed back then. Do you still consider your music style to be alt country?
That is a tag that we got hung on us in the mid 90s because it was kind of coming up. The Uncle Tupelo had been around and they'd broken up, and Wilco and Sunvolt were doing stuff, and we were doing our thing. And there was a handful of other bands. Honestly, there was a lot of bands around the country that were what we now call Americana, but in the mid 90s, they were trying to figure out what they were going to call it. And I remember we never really felt super comfortable with it, but we played with all these bands, so it seemed fine. But they would come to us. Different folks would come to us with name suggestions for what to call the movement. At one point, it was going to be the folks at Bloodshot wanted to call it Insurgent Country.
Insurgent.
One of the
country.
guys wanted to call it Honky Skronk. It was Cowpunk was a big contender. Eventually, they all settled on alternative country. Alt country. I was never crazy about it because I felt like we were as much influenced by British invasion, the LA Paisley underground scene. There was a lot of stuff in the mix for us, but for years it was Johnny Cash meets the Clash. That was how people would describe our band. I've only ever really thought of us as a rock and roll band, and that's to this day I think of us as just a rock and roll band.
Well, what's funny is when you played Mansfield 12 years ago, we had promoted you as alt country because that's sure. The tag
sure.
wherever we could find. And you come out, you open with Barrier Reef, you're doing 3 or 4 or 5 other rock songs. And I remember talking with the sound man after the show, and he says, yeah, some guy in a cowboy hat came up and he says, I'm not hearing any country music.
Yeah.
And right then, you played Mama Tried.
There you go.
Yes. And he was like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. That's what we've always wanted to do, is to make ourselves happy, play music we like, even if it doesn't really fit nicely into a genre. So it's made it hard over the years to get played on the radio, to get played Nashville. We can't, we don't do great in Nashville because we're not what they are looking for in either direction. Too punk for the punk club, or too punk for the country bars, too country for the punk clubs. And then we made a couple of records that really didn't fit in either, like Fight Songs and Satellite Rides both of them are sort of what they'd call power pop, like cheap trick. So I don't know, man. We do what we like, and so far it's worked out pretty well.
And then you went out on tour, and according to the song Doreen, pulling into Cleveland in a 7-seater tour van, there's 8 of us. I'm sleeping on the floor. At what point did you go from sleeping on the floor to, I think I'm doing okay now?
Well, we did. We were in a van for a long time, just driving ourselves around. We started 93. We signed to Elektra 96. And once we had signed to Elektra Records, we did take our first big money and bought our own nice new van. So we were in the van until 97. Even though at that point it did get nicer, we'd have somebody else drive the van, a crew member, a tour manager type of person. But starting in around like 98, we got into tour buses, and we've been mostly in tour buses or some kind of nice Sprinter van set up since 98. So it's been a long time since we've been spoiled and soft.
Spoiled and soft. How has your songwriting evolved over the years? Now we're going to get into, your current lifestyle versus, say, 10 years ago and before, but has your songwriting evolved since the early days of the old 97's?
I don't know. I write songs. Again, I kind of want to write songs that make me happy. You know, I'm the first audience for the song. And if I don't like what I'm working on, I feel like it's not going to turn out good. So I just have always done it pretty instinctively. You know, I really believe that a songwriter's superpower is their intuition. And so I try to trust my instincts and try to let the song tell me what it wants to be. So, you know, whether or not I'm actively drinking or still smoking weed or whatever sort of substances, like I don't feel like that ever used to do anything but sometimes slow me down as a songwriter. It certainly didn't make me better. It's been 10 years since I got off both of those, but I really love it as a craft. I think about it a lot. I've been teaching it lately. I teach it at a college in New York City. I teach at the New School, songwriting. I write about it. I think about it. I conduct retreats. So it's something that I really care about. But at the same time, I don't know how much I've evolved. I think I've gotten better because I've done it a lot, but I don't know that I don't know that I'm really different than I used to be.
Do you spend when you're not touring, when you're not recording? How much time do you spend on songwriting?
There was a time when I would write every single day. At a certain point, you wind up. I wound up doing other stuff too. So I've had I've done kids' books. I've done other types of writing and prose. Obviously the teaching. I do a lot of touring, especially solo touring. It sounds like I'm making excuses, and probably I am. But at the same time, I've wound up with, I always have too many songs. So if I'm not writing every day, I don't feel so bad. The only thing is I feel like I'm a better writer when I write more frequently. So sometimes I'll go through a dry spell or a drought or a quiet time. I just went through one, and now I'm back into writing most every day. And when that happens, it's exciting because I can just feel, the good songs come out. Like I'll have a handful of pretty good songs that I write, and all of a sudden I'll write one that I know is like a 10 out of 10. And that doesn't happen as much if you're not writing. So I try to write every day.
The songwriters that I've met over the years, either have a little pocket notebook or something with them where they're writing down ideas.
Yeah.
You're reaching for it.
I've got them. They're all over the place. But now the note section on your phone does tend to be where I'll remember a little lyric, an idea, a character, some words, juicy phrase.
When you go into the studio, how do you know a song is done?
It's really tricky. It's more important that a song get finished than it be perfect, right? That's even if there's such a thing as perfection. So a lot of times you have to just let a song be what it is and move on. I know a song is done when it's mastered and on an album. Once that happens, I let go of it. But really, until it's out, a song can still get monkeyed with and made better. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine letting a song sit for 10 years. And in fact, there's a song that I started working on with Evan Felker from Turnpike Troubadours 10 years ago. In fact, he and I have written a bunch together over the years. On my new solo record, I've got 3 songs that he and I wrote together. But we have a song that we started on 10 years ago called All the Beer in Texas. And it's never gotten finished. And the other day I woke up from a dream and I had solved this 10-year-old problem that I had with this song. And I recorded a version of it and sent it off to Evan. And he's like, all right, good job. We finished it. Finally, 10 years later.
10 years later.
Yeah.
All the Beer in Texas?
Yeah.
Is there anything other than Shiner?
I don't know, man. You'll have to wait till the song comes out.
The strangest place you've ever written a song, or at least had an idea for a song, where were you?
Oh, that reminds me of that old Newlywed question. Also,
which is making its rounds again on Facebook Reels.
Hilarious. I once wrote a song in in Frankfurt, Germany. I was trying to get away from my bandmates, and I went and found a phone booth. So this was years ago, back when phone booths were still a thing. But it was giant. It was, big enough that I could sit in it with my guitar awkwardly. And I wrote a song called Oppenheimer in a phone booth in Frankfurt, Germany. So that's pretty weird. But I was on a road called Oppenheimer, and the song contains the lyric "on a road called Oppenheimer."
Your favorite deep cut that never got a spotlight?
It's funny. We've been around for so long and made so many records. There was the period of our band that people I feel like know the least is sort of just post major label crash. Like, we rode out the end of the major labels. I mean, they still exist, but it's not the same thing as it was. In the mid aughts, we did a couple of records, late aughts, called The Grand Theater Volume 1 and 2. And there was a song on one of those records called No Simple Machine. And I feel like, I just feel like it's one of the better songs I ever wrote, but never has anybody brought it up or requested it. It's, wildly underrated. I'll put it that way.
It opens with, he said, "Can I buy you a drink?" And she said, what he meant was, "Can I buy you?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is just a super clever line.
Yeah. Thank you. I thought so too. I felt like that whole song it works pretty well as sort of, it's got a bit of a plot. And it's got this sort of meta commentary on the people in the song. I thought it was pretty cool. It succeeded as a song, but not as a commercial endeavor.
By the way, I've neglected to mention, I am a musician. I'm a solo artist, and I play a lot of your songs.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you.
And No Simple Machine is actually one of the songs I play.
Nice. Amazing.
You have collaborated, as you mentioned, Rosanne Cash and the performer from Turnpike Troubadours. You've also collaborated with one of my favorite artists, Brandi Carlile.
Yeah. Brandi plays the role of God in a song we wrote together.
That's right. She the God. How'd that come about?
I remember I was in Salt Lake City in a dressing room, and I was working on this song, and I had got through the first verse where there's this guy, and he's convinced that despite all his sinning and, poor choices and bad living, that he's going to go to heaven anyway. I'm good with God, he kept saying. And then it gets to the chorus, and for whatever reason, as I was writing it, was all of a sudden the line, I wonder how she feels about me. And I realized, God is a woman. And I'm going to now be putting words into the mouth of this female character that is God. And it felt like something that was tricky. Like I might get in trouble if I tried to do this all by myself. And I just thought it'd be more interesting if I turned it into a duet and God, female God, appeared in the song. So I started thinking, who should be God? Like, who should I reach out to sing the part of God and maybe even write, the part that she was going to sing. And I remembered back to a few years earlier, I had done a Johnny Cash tribute down in Austin, like an all-star thing at the big ACL Moody Theater. And after I sang, they had set up a living room on the stage. So after you'd sing your song, you'd go sit in a little living room visible to the audience. And there was a bar set up, and you'd have a drink and listen to the other performers. And so I sang, I went over and I was still drinking. I got a beer and I met Christofferson for the first time. I'd never met him before in front of the audience. And so I stood there talking to him as the next, performer came on, and she started singing Folsom Prison Blues. And Chris Christofferson and I looked at each other and thought, who the heck is this voice? And she was a brand new artist that neither of us had ever heard of. And it turned out to be Brandi Carlile singing Folsom Prison. And it was mind blowing. And we just kept looking at each other the whole time. And so Brandi had always been in my mind as this sort of larger than life figure. And it turned out that she goes to church. She's a very strong spiritual person. So she said she would do it, but she wanted to write the words that she was going to sing as God, which is what I'd hoped for to begin with.
Oh,
and It was so much better than I even could have imagined. She was great.
It was actually Austin City Limits that turned me on to Brandi Carlile. I had never heard of her. I had heard the name. I had not heard the music, and it's like, oh, Brandy's on ACL, and I became an instant fan.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? And she's
Right.
a really nice, great, cool person.
All right. Let's talk about your gigs. Do you have a pre-gig ritual?
Well, since I've been sober, it's very different, but it's, and actually in the last year, I've had to get vocal cord surgery. I had gotten, a really bad cyst on one of my cords. And since I did that in the run up to that and during the recovery from that, I learned how to be a better singer and how to do vocal warm-ups. So now my prep for a gig is a lot different. I'll do the embarrassing vocal warm-ups that my band makes fun of me for mercilessly, but it's a lot better. So I do a lot of vocal warm-ups. I can't eat spicy foods on tour before gigs. It's more about what I can't do. I no longer drink at all, but even before I stopped drinking, I couldn't drink red wine. I try and get out and get some exercise every day. It's kind of a stay healthy thing that I should be doing regardless.
You talk about your bandmates. They're still your best friends.
Yeah.
And going all the way back to
1993.
1993.
Yeah.
So a little kidding from the band is fair play.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, we love each other. It's the best. I was in a bunch of bands before, and it really took finding the exact combination of 3 other guys that we could all work together. And we are the longest running intact unit that I've challenged other people what other band has been together with their original members longer than we have at our current 32-year, unbroken, no breaks, no hiatuses, no replacements. And I mean, I understand Blur over in the UK has got us beat. And somebody said that Fish may or may not have the same exact original lineup and maybe been together longer, but it's pretty, it's really a testament to how much we love each other, to your question.
That's really cool. When you were 28 years old, you got a gig on a movie, The Hope Floats, with Sandra Bullock, and you're 28 years old. You're now on a soundtrack with Bob Seger, Lyle Lovett, the Rolling Stones. Hope Floats. How'd you get the gig?
That was funny. Don who was actually the band leader on that Johnny Cash tribute that night when I heard Brandy for the first time. Don is great. He almost produced our record Too Far to Care, and then the Rolling Stones scooped him out from under us, and he went on and did one of their records in the late 90s. He asked me to write a song for a movie called A Cool, Dry Place, starring Vince Vaughn and Joey Lauren Adams. And he showed me some footage of Vince driving down a highway in a convertible. And so I wrote a song called Jagged that was sort of inspired by that footage. And they did not end up using the song for the movie, but Don liked it, and he ended up using my demo in the background of a scene in the movie Hope Floats. You can barely hear the song in the movie, but I think, like you said, I think it did wind up on the soundtrack. And more importantly to me, it wound up as the album opening song on our second Elektra Records album, Fight Songs.
And then that same year, you were on Clay Pigeons.
Yeah, they used Time Bomb as the opening credits. So Joaquin Phoenix kills somebody, and then they cut immediately to Time Bomb, full volume. That was pretty fun. Again, Vince Vaughn was in that movie.
On the same soundtrack, though, with Pat Boone, again, Lyle Lovett, and Elvis Presley, and Time Bomb.
You're telling me things I didn't even know. I never even knew who was on the other artists on the soundtrack. That's pretty fun.
Oh, my gosh. Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special.
Yeah, that was... James Gunn directed Guardians. He wrote and directed all the Guardians movies. And James I met him years ago when he was about to make his first movie, Slither. And he was using one of our songs as the closing credits song for that movie. And
The New Kid.
Oh, is that what it was? Was the closing credit song on Slither? Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. James is great. So we've been friends since then. I've been able to watch his career, and it's been incredible. And I just had dinner with him in Atlanta the other night, the week that Superman came out, and it was so fun hearing his stories about, you know, this next new giant chapter in his career. But he asked if I would write a song with him for an alien character to sing in Guardians of the Galaxy, and we wrote a song together. In fact, we wrote 7 versions of this song. I don't know what Christmas is, but Christmas time is here. And there were a lot of really completely beyond the pale versions of this song. And every time we would play it for Disney, the folks at Disney would say, there's no way that's going to appear in a Disney holiday special. So what we wound up with was pretty tame in comparison to some of the versions we wrote together.
What was the name of your character?
My character is Bzermikitokolok. The other guys in the old 97's characters weren't named, unfortunately, but I had a big speaking part in the special where I have a whole scene with Chris Pratt, which we filmed over a couple of days, and he was really a generous scene partner, as they say in acting. But he was really cool and nice to me and helped me out with the acting part of it a lot. My bandmates originally were kind of jealous that I got a bunch of, dialogue, but then once they saw that what it took to act, they were really grateful that they didn't have to go through it, because it's terrifying. You got to remember all these words and, act like a foot away from this big movie star. As nice as he was, he's still this incredibly terrifying, charismatic movie star. And that was really fun. Yeah.
You are no longer 7 steps away from Kevin Bacon.
No, we shared a microphone in the final scene, and I just was texting with Kevin Bacon yesterday. He's a really great person. Bzermikitokolok, which is funny because Chris Pratt has to say my character's name. And so every time we would start the scene, he would look over at me and he'd go, "What's it again?" And I'd yell, "Bzermikitokolok." And so I had to keep reminding him over and over again.
And that they got you a gig on Saturday Night Live.
We went on there with Kevin Bacon and sang the closing song of that, which was a song that I had written that appeared on an old 97's Christmas album that we'd released a few years earlier, called Here It Is Christmas Time. And Kevin, originally, the Jimmy Fallon's people just expected Kevin to sing the whole song, because in the movie, I just sing harmonies and he sings the lead vocal. But after we had done the sound check, Kevin texted me and said, "Would you want to take the third verse? 'Cause you wrote the song." And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And so he got it, put through with all the Jimmy Fallon people, which was actually very generous of him, 'cause he didn't have to share the lead vocal duties, but it was pretty cool. Very, very sweet guy.
The one thing missing from that, because I was watching that night, was the hair shake, the windmill, and the shaking your ass.
Yeah, I didn't realize I didn't do any of that stuff. I probably did shake my hair a little bit. I almost never, but that is it's a pretty quiet song. It's hard to work.
That's true.
Hard to work the windmiller, as the fans have dubbed it. It's hard to work that in on a quiet song.
Okay, quiet songs. I'm glad you brought that up, because this was one of the most exciting nights that I had ever seen the old 97's. You opened for Lyle Lovett and his acoustic band.
Oh yeah.
And it was only a 40-minute set.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little rough. It's hard to do only 40 minutes.
For the listeners, Lyle Lovett was doing 3 nights in a row at the Majestic Theater in Dallas. I think Majestic was celebrating 125 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Lyle Lovett and his acoustic band, 3 nights in a row. The first night opening act was a woman singer-songwriter. Night number 2 was Hayes Carl. Both of them were both pretty acoustic.
Sure.
Night number 3, you come out and just rock the Majestic Theater.
And Lyle was fine with it. I mean, sometimes bands are not crazy about the opener being loud. In fact, we have friends in a band called Vandaliers. Love the Vandaliers. They're a rough opener because they're so loud and so high energy. And
they're a great band.
It's hard to follow a band that rocks that hard. And we do rock pretty hard, but Lyle is very confident, obviously, and he doesn't care. He's happy to let us go up there and do our craziness.
Oh, and then he invited you out to sing
Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head by BJ.
BJ Thomas.
Yeah.
You mentioned your health earlier. Let's talk about your health. Jumping off of drum risers and amps over the years to Time Bomb. You doing okay?
Yeah. There was one night in San Francisco at the Fillmore when I jumped off, because the drum riser there is pretty high. It's already like 3 feet high. And then my amp's another 3 feet. So I was starting about 6 feet up in the air. And then I usually jump 3 or 4 feet up in the air. So say I reached, and especially at the Fillmore, it's one of my favorite venues in the world. So maybe I reached an apex of 10 feet. And then I was coming down 10 feet and for some reason, I thought it would be cool if I kind of stomped as I landed. So already I'm like jamming my feet into the stage, and I felt my knees both buckle backwards a tiny bit. And I just thought, this could really end badly. I mean, it could be like bones sticking out of my legs kind of badly. So that night I decided maybe I'm not going to go like 10 feet up in the air anymore. I'm like, at that point I was maybe in my mid 40s, late 40s. So these days I play pretty cool. I had a couple of bad high ankle sprains recently that I've had to slow down on the jumping.
It's called getting old.
Yeah. Yeah.
4 days ago I started on Medicare, so I can relate.
Nice.
But so jumping off of drum risers, you had mentioned earlier the vocal cord surgery, the cyst on the cord. You did no performing, if I recall, no talking.
Oh, I did no talking just for a week, and then very limited talking for a couple of weeks. No performance for 4 months. Yeah.
What'd you do during the 4 months?
Man, I had all these big plans. Like I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna whatever.
It's like that COVID time when we're sitting around going, okay, I can't go anywhere. Everything's closed. I can't tour. I can't. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to learn to make sourdough bread.
Yeah. Some people did. And I mean, I was pretty active during COVID because I played in this room, online shows, but during the recovery from my surgery, I did a lot of, vocal exercise, trying to do the right thing, because it's the recovery where it can go wrong. Like if I didn't do what I was supposed to do, or if I overdid it, that is when I could have really messed up my voice for a long time. Hayes, Carl, you bring up Hayes. He had vocal cord surgery and didn't do the recovery like he was supposed to. And he wound up, having some issues. But I talked to him a lot before I got my thing done. And he told me his stories, and I learned from him. And yeah, I kind of took it easy. I'll put it that way.
Okay. I was unaware Hayes Carl went through surgery. Okay. Also one of my favorites, though.
Love him. He's so great. Yeah.
When the circle is small when it comes to clever songwriters, and I had mentioned already the admiration for your cleverness.
Thanks.
Hayes fits in that category as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a song called Jesus Loves You, that I wrote with a writer from Dallas named Salim Narala. But I remember reaching out to Hayes because my song is very similar to a song he has. And he called me back and he said, man, you can write anything about Jesus you want. Everybody's been writing songs about Jesus for 2,000 years. So I felt pretty good about that.
Would his song be Jesus and Elvis?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another song that's on my list.
So great. Yeah.
Yeah. Road to Soberness. You are very public about this. You just wrote a blog within the last month or so that you're now 10 years sober.
Yeah.
You stopped in a pub in London.
Yeah, I mean, I had my last drink in London. I think my last drink was technically in the hotel room around 4 a.m. that night. But yes, that was it 10 years ago. As Murray, my bass player in the old 97's, likes to say, I plugged the jug.
You plugged the jug.
Plugged the jug.
Did the song Intervention on Most Messed Up have anything to do with your newfound sobriety?
Well, that whole record.
Which means, were you Richard in the song?
You know, at the time, I wouldn't have thought of myself that way because that was the last record I made I made the last band record. I made a record called The Traveler. But that was in like the last couple of years before I got sober. But I mean, it's pretty clear on that album that I was really wrestling with my own out of control life. You know, that Most Messed Up. The whole record is like a concept album about, you know, rock bottom.
Does it bother you or do you have any problems playing the songs about drinking? Oh
yeah, no, I it's funny. That was something I wondered if that would be an issue for me. And it never has been. Whenever I sing a song in my mind, I sort of teleport to where I was when I wrote it. Which is funny because it makes every song like a little time machine. So it's almost like I'm back there, and it never wound up being a problem. The issue was more when people would just set shots at the base of my mic stand, and I'd be standing there looking down at like a moat of whiskey around my feet, which they've stopped doing that. But that was a little strange. Like, you know, it was too much.
Has sobriety changed your life?
Oh yeah. I wouldn't have been able to keep the band together. I wouldn't have been able to keep my marriage together. I wouldn't have been able to live in the same house as my kids during their, you know, adolescent teenage years. I highly recommend it for people who need it. I think there are people out there who are able to drink and it's not a problem. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who wish that it wasn't a problem and sort of ignore that it is a problem. But, you know, there's a lot of us out here that still have a really good time and are sober. I never thought that was, I didn't think that was possible. I thought that if you had to get sober, it meant that all of the fun in your life was in the past. And from now on, you were just like basically just trudging through the last days of your life, you know, with no happiness in sight. And that's not the case, it turns out. It's actually pretty great.
That it's still okay to live life alcohol free.
Yeah, it's great. And for a lot of people, it's even better.
You had mentioned in that blog, that same blog, that you went to a couple of AA meetings. They just weren't for you.
Everybody's got a path. Yeah.
Which tells me that, okay, I made a decision and I'm going to stick with that decision, and that I don't need to go into a room full of other people to help me validate that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why it wasn't the path that called out to me. I wouldn't have been able to do it completely alone. I did have a therapist that I did talk therapy with and met with once a week. And, she was invaluable. I needed that. I did go to a few meetings, and I do have to this day, a group of, you know, mostly musician friends and some writer friends, that I draw on who are sober, and I can talk about it with them in the way that you would talk about it in a group setting. But there's a lot of people, maybe most people do need the structure of the environment that is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I get it. I can see why it's brilliant. You know, Stephen King, I've gotten to be friends with him over the years. He loves AA. He still goes to AA now, 30 years later, you know, I don't know if almost every day, but, you know, a lot. And I think that it's beautiful. You know, I think it's great, whatever it takes.
And I would assume living on 3 acres in upstate New York doesn't hurt.
I guess. I mean, being all by yourself, sometimes it feels like you could do whatever you want and get away with it, but you still got to wake up and look at yourself in the mirror.
Let's talk about American Primitive, your 13th studio album with the old 97's. You have 13 songs ranging from 1 minute 52 to about 4.5 minutes. You are the king of short songs. Are you aware of that?
Well, thank you. But I do feel like we've had more long songs. In fact, I'm dropping a single the day after we record this. My solo record is getting announced this week, and I'm dropping a new single, a song I wrote with Evan Felker from Turnpike called "Come As You Are," and it clocks in right at 4 minutes. To me, 4 minutes, that's a long song.
That's a long song. Do you know the longest song you've recorded?
Please Hold On While the Train Is Moving. Is that the longest one?
No.
What is it?
No. Longer Than You've Been Alive.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. 5:52. Almost a 6-minute song.
Oh, my God.
If you had let Ken do 8 more seconds of a guitar solo.
Yeah. No, that's...
But yeah, actually, Please Hold On comes in at 5:35. That's
okay.
About 20 seconds less. Also, Color of a Lonely Heart is Blue.
Oh, that's a Murray song. That is a long, that's a very hypnotic song, I feel like.
That ties with Longer Than You've Been Alive.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long. Crazy. Yeah.
Hey, and we only have a few minutes left. One of your songs I really wanted to touch on because it, when you find a song that garners up a mental image, this is one of those songs, and such a brilliant story. The Other Shoe.
Thank you.
Probably not a autobiographical song.
No.
How did you come up with the concept of The Other Shoe? And I'm going to expand on this after you talk about how you came across The Other Shoe.
My favorite writer is Elmore Leonard, and he writes, thrillers, crime fiction. And I think there was a time early in the old 97's, when I was writing a lot of songs that I wanted to feel like little mini kind of crime stories. I don't know why. There's a long tradition in music of murder ballads, and I wanted to write with The Other Shoe. I wanted to write a murder ballad that took place before the murder happened. And I just had this vision of there's a character laying under the bed. He knows that his wife is in the bed above him with her lover, and he's planning what he's going to do. And he's running through how he's going to have to dig the graves and how he's going to then have to run to Mexico. And then I went out and started singing it, and I kind of started feeling bad because I realized that this tradition of murder ballads, primarily in bluegrass and country music, it's almost always a woman that gets murdered. And it just bothered me. I felt like I was really adding to the sort of violence against women in popular culture. So that was the last, I think. I mean, God, I've written hundreds of songs since then. Maybe something else happened that I forget about. But I think that was the last time I wrote a murder ballad where the victim is a woman. I mean, to be fair, there's two victims, her and the boyfriend. But
a double grave.
Yeah. But my favorite thing about it was that when we recorded with Waylon Jennings, he asked if he could record that song. That was one of the two songs he picked
asked you to do that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is a compliment. Listening to that song, and now I had heard the song several times, but usually driving around town, and okay, this song has a catchy hook, and you're waiting for the other shoe to fall. So driving around town again, the song comes on and you go, you know what? I'm really going to pay attention to the lyrics all the way from beginning to end. Oh my God, this song's about a double murder.
Yeah.
And so listening, but the descriptive words in there had such a mental image. I sincerely thought that this would be a great song for a Coen Brothers movie.
Ah, I love it. Please. I love that.
I don't have that connection. Maybe you do.
I'll see what I can do. Yeah.
The Other Shoe. To the listeners, look it up. It's a great song.
You know, I do have a story about the Waylon Jennings session with that song that I tell on stage, and I think I've written it up at some point, but it's one of my favorites, and I'll tell you a short version of it if you like. It's a little risque, but nothing terrible. We recorded with him. We started early in the day. He wanted to start at 8 a.m., which we were like 25-year-old kids. We were like, are you crazy? And so we tried to go back and forth. We wound up starting at 8 a.m. because he's Waylon Jennings. And we recorded all the music, and then he was going to sing. And it was incredible because I had written this song, and suddenly there's Waylon, and he's in the vocal booth, and he's saying, dig a double grave. And it's just like, oh. But he kept pronouncing this one word in the song, elixir. He kept pronouncing the word Excelsior. And finally, the band looked at me like, dude, you got to go say something to him because it doesn't make sense and me, the youngest old 97, I had to go in and tell Waylon Jennings that he was singing it wrong. And he was very cool about it. He's like, what am I saying? And I said, you're singing Excelsior. And I said, what's it supposed to be? Elixir. He's like, well, what even is that? And so it's like an old timey word for drugs. And he goes, you would think I would know that. I was like, yeah, I know. You would think. So I corrected him. We went back in. He sang it wrong again. Excelsior. And I'm like, oh man. So I had to go back in, and he said, did I sing it wrong again? And I said, yeah. And he goes, and I said, you know what? I have an idea. Just don't think of it, Elixir, Excelsior. Just think of the line because the line is prescribe and elixir. And I said, just think of it as, two women that love each other, and it's Annie licks her. And all of a sudden I realized I don't know this guy very well. Like, he could be like real churchy, like he could get, he was a little religious later in life. Like, all of a sudden I flushed red thinking, oh my God, what if I just screwed it up and Waylon Jennings is going to get mad and whatever. And he looked at me and he goes, oh son, you're sick. I like that. And he nailed it, and he sang it perfectly the next time, and thank goodness. But now every time I hear his version of the song, prescribe, and he licks her, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh no.
I know what he's doing.
All right. You're not recording. You're not touring. You're not doing anything. What's a typical day for Rhett Miller?
I have a lot of things that I like to do, and I also have a lot of things my wife would like for me to do. I try to balance those out when I'm home. And now that both of the kids are out of the house, back in the day, it would have been a lot of getting the kids ready for school, driving them to and from their sport stuff. And now, today, for instance, I woke up and I worked on the solo record announcement stuff, the video. And then I worked on the songwriting book that I'm writing. And I'm compiling quotes from my Wheels Off podcast. And then I interviewed Vicki Peterson, the guitarist of the Bangles. I interviewed her for Wheels Off. And then I did a couple of chores around the house. And then I sat down for this interview. And after this, my son is driving in from Burlington, Vermont. So I'll take him out to dinner. So it's that. It's a combination of stuff I want to do, stuff I'm supposed to do, and time with loved ones.
Chores. Do you mow the lawn?
I do. I mow a small portion of the lawn that's next to the swimming pool. The large portion of the lawn outside of the fence, we have to have people do that because I can't mow 3 acres.
No. About 45 minutes ago, you mentioned the name Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
The 12th album, simply titled 12th.
Yeah. There
was a photo of Roger Staubach, and you got a call from Jerry Jones people.
Well, it was actually Roger's kids are fans of my band. And so over the years, I've gotten to be friends with Jeff Staubach, who works with his dad, and then Michelle Grimes Staubach, and the whole Staubach family I've gotten to be friends with. And about once a season, I'll go take in a Cowboy game at the Staubach booth. I've gotten to be friends with Roger, which if you could go back and tell 12-year-old me that I would be friends with Roger Staubach someday, I would never believe it. But he's incredibly cool, like a really cool, fun, chill guy. So when I had in a dream, I had a vision that the cover of our 12th album, the old 97's 12th album, would be a picture of Roger Staubach. I reached out to his son and he talked to his dad, and Roger was very cool about it. Roger signed off on it, and that he reached out to Jerry Jones and the Cowboys people and got their permission. And then they reached out to the NFL and got just the hoops that we had to jump through for that album cover was crazy. But I stand by that album cover. It's been a little bit problematic. There's anti-sports people. There's anti-Cowboys people. There's all sorts of people with hot sports opinions. And some of them will tell you that album cover is terrible, but they're wrong. It's the best album cover in the history of music.
And Roger, one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history, wore number 12. So it made sense that it was the 12th album.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And it could be argued that he might have been the best quarterback of all time, but he gave up a lot of years of his prime to go serve our country in Vietnam in the Navy. And then he came back and played. And, who knows what he would have done if he'd have been there for his entire 20s.
2024, you hosted the Songwriting is Magic in the Catskill Mountains, a songwriting retreat. Can we look forward to that in 25?
There will be something similar. That exact event at that exact space won't happen again this year because the timing didn't work out. But I will continue to do songwriting retreats and teaching at the New School undergraduate. I love it. I love songwriting. I love teaching songwriting. It's hilarious. It's great.
You're cool. Let's talk about Wheels Off podcast then. You've had artists Lucinda Williams, Stuart Copeland, Billy Strings, Charlie Crockett, Nora Jones. Your latest effort with Ray Benson from Asleep at the Wheel. What got you started with doing Wheels Off? I had been approached by producers about doing a podcast. At a certain point, everybody in entertainment suddenly had to have a podcast. And so I'd been approached by people saying, if and when you do a podcast, what would it be? And I'm not a big podcast guy, no offense. I listen to audiobooks mostly. And it finally occurred to me, if I was going to do a podcast, I would really only feel comfortable having the same conversation that I have in dressing rooms with other musicians and friends, just talking about creative stuff. And so I basically came up with a format that's just that. I just say, what are you working on? How did you start? How do you deal with, stuff inside of you that's tricky? And then what advice would you give your younger self? It's a 4-question podcast, and it winds up being about a half an hour, sometimes longer. A couple of times it's been a little shorter when folks are, like Larry McMurtry, brilliant guy, hard to get him to go on at great length about anything. Yeah.
So I love it. It's easy. It comes out every couple of weeks. And, I've never made a penny off of it. I don't know if there's a way that people monetize these things, but I do get so much out of it. I wind up making new friends. I wind up collaborating with people, and I get a lot out of it, even if I don't. My wife likes to ask me, why are you still doing it? It has rewards beyond what I would be able to put in our bank account. Because it's fun. Yeah, that too. That's fun. It's called Wheels Off. It's available on Apple and Spotify and all of the places you find podcasts. So go check it out. Rhett Miller, what's your favorite ice cream? There's a small company up here called Jane's in the Hudson Valley. My family members, my kids would tell you that their flavor, Killer Chocolate, is the best, but I think they've got their peanut butter flavor is my favorite. But if we're going to really be historical about it, I would say Bluebell cookies and cream. That was a long answer to a. I love ice cream. I love ice cream, Steve. Like, now we're talking. Bluebell cookies and cream. Yeah. Is a close second. No. Bluebell's my number one all-time favorite. Okay. I live in New York now. This is the conversation with my kids. I can't get Bluebell up here. That's too bad. It's not fair. I know. That's why I got to come back to Texas like 6 times a year. Hey, Rhett, I always like to conclude these interviews with what's called the lightning round. Okay. And these are 10 this or that questions. It gives the audience a deeper appreciation for who you are. If you don't mind, can we do this? Sure. Let's go. It starts off very simple. Night or day? Day.
Acoustic or electric?
Acoustic.
Movie theater or Netflix?
Movie theater.
Solo or band?
Band.
Soup or sandwich?
Sandwich.
Lyrics or melody?
Lyrics.
Work hard or play hard?
Play hard.
Studio or stage?
Stage.
Sneakers or sandals?
Sneakers.
Alone or collaborate?
Collaborate.
Laundry or dishes?
Ooh, I kind of love doing both. Laundry.
Laundry. And cookies and cream. Can I plug a couple events you got coming up?
Yeah, please.
Old 97's performed Friday, September 19th, 10 p.m. at Billy Bob's, Texas in Fort Worth. Go see them if you want to see Rhett Miller solo, or in this case, Rhett Miller with friends. You have an event coming up benefiting the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation called Breathe Easy Concert. That is Sunday, November 9th at the Granada Theater in Dallas, where Rhett Miller, Ben Queller, Cody Canada, the O's, and more. For a unique acoustic song swap. That's is your brother still involved with that?
Yeah, my brother Ross and I started it, like 16 years ago now. It's been one of my favorite things I do every year, because just, meeting the people that it benefits, the kids who grow up and are now adults living with cystic fibrosis. The lifespan used to be so much shorter than it is now. It's not that they've completely got a cure for it, but they have gotten really close actually to making it so that people can live full lives with cystic fibrosis. And that was not the case when we started. I'm not saying our benefit, it couldn't have hurt that we did it, but I'm just so glad that's the case.
Now, usually when someone gets involved with a cause, whether it's mental health or a cancer society or something, it's something personal to them. Does cystic fibrosis have something personal with you?
One of my brother's best friends, Matt, married a young woman with cystic fibrosis, and that was how it came into my life. And Matt is he still helps put on the benefit. Matt Elmore is great. And so that was the way. And since then, of course, I've met so many folks that have cystic fibrosis and people in their lives with cystic fibrosis. And it's it's a tough thing. It's a hard thing to live with, but I'm just so glad that the medicine is getting better. I will also say, on September 12th, I'll be in Arlington as part of the Do It for Durrett benefit that started, 10 years ago when a sports reporter, Richard Durrett, died and his family was left. And that started this whole thing. And I played the very first one. Eric Nadel, your friend, brought me in on that, and here we are all these years later, and it's still going, and it's big. So if folks want to look at that, September 12th. September 12th in Arlington. Do you know where? I don't, but I'm sure it's in my phone. I know I'll be there in Arlington. It's okay. I'll look it up. I'll be there. Nice. Old 97's again, Friday, September 19th, Billy Bob's, Rhett Miller and Friends, Sunday, November 9th, Granada Theater in Dallas, and again, in Arlington. September 12th, yeah. September 12th. Rhett, it's the last hour and 7 minutes has just been fun. Yeah. I mean, I greatly appreciate it. And again, thanks to Eric Nadel for putting this together. Thanks for being on About Mansfield. Well, you're welcome. Thanks so much for having me. Super fun. I appreciate it. This podcast is copyrighted by Podcast Mansfield Recording Studio and is intended for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this podcast without written consent is strictly prohibited. We thank you all for listening on behalf of the entire news team. I'm Steve Casillo, and this is About Mansfield.